everyone, welcome to another Animation Friday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly dive into a Disney animated classic that is considered highly among, I guess, all of the Disney films that you could probably think of. Um, Obviously, it's not considered to be one of the more recent films, and usually I think sometimes there's a certain amount of underestimation when it comes with this film in particular. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but the thing is it's been sort of well recognized even within the um, Disney theme parks within themselves. If you go to Disneyland, for example, they have two rides really that are sort of dedicated to this film. So you could argue whether or not it is more significant or more important than other Disney films. For some reason, it's not maybe rated as highly as some of their other films, but it still seems to manage to get across the idea that it holds up as far as an animated film is concerned. And as you can see by the title, as well as probably thumbnail, we're going to be addressing Alice in Wonderland. And I'm talking the 2D animated film that came out, I believe, in 1951, if I'm not mistaken. And what I think really works about this film is the fact that it is very creative and it also has a lot of color to it. And I think oftentimes we associate this particular animated film with spring only because it is so out there and how it approaches its whole, I guess, interpretation of Wonderland, the place. And, you see flowers and, animals, like, for example, the rabbit and whatnot. And, it kind of gives off a very almost spring-like impression. So I thought I would dive into this particular film during this time. So even though this film in particular doesn't follow the books to a T, it does give a certain amount that is very close to what the books were trying to kind of get across, while at the same time expanding upon sort of new ideas and themes. So this particular adaptation of Alice in Wonderland revolves around none other than Alice and her journey through Wonderland, which is a fairy tale world that she dreams up. And it's sort of about her trying to get out of this dream world and sort of return to home because, again, she is in that state of not knowing that she's sort of dreaming. And what I think really works well with this particular adaptation is you really sort of see it through Alice's perspective because she is the kind of character that you're supposed to kind of get behind, and it does a good job of giving her a certain amount of characterization, but at the same time sort of eliminating it so we could sort of see it through her understanding. And you really do get a sense of her struggles as she's sort of trying to cope with being in this sort of really wacky and strange world. And you ultimately sort of end up wanting to have her kind of get through that particular obstacle. And you sort of see too how she comes across a bunch of colorful characters as well as the villain, the Queen of Hearts. And what's good about this film is the fact that when it expands upon the themes, it does so in an interesting way. For example, in this particular adaptation, you see how Alice is sort of kind of wanting to have this sort of dream world within the beginning, because her day-to-day is kind of fairly mundane and she's learning things that are kind of not at all too interesting for her. And so when her life is sort of surrounded by this, she kind of envisions what life would be like in sort of her own imagination. And what essentially she comes up with is sort of, again, Wonderland. And, it sort of hints back into the idea of, be careful what you wish for, and um, there's also a sense of inadequacy, I think, too, within Alice's character, and you sort of see that as she is really struggling to try to figure out how she can kind of get out of the situation that she's in. And I think these are very honest and relatable themes that I think any character or any person really can identify with and get behind. And I think her character sort of embodies that understanding. And I think that's very common to at least have, I think, within children, is this sense of not being able to be up to par as uh, as what they could be, and feeling a sense of not only being uh, not as, I guess, useful, but also feel like lost and uh, not as uh, or I guess not having a certain understanding of the self, I guess, is also another thing that it sort of plays around with too. And a lot of that really does come through Alice's character and how she ends up sort of going through this world that supposedly she sort of creates with her mind. And ultimately, it works, and gives you a real understanding of the world of Wonderland, as well as the um, cartoonish nature that Disney is known for, and uh, combines it into an interesting interpretation. Now, what really works with this animation as well is the fact that it's very fast paced, and the comedic timing is very strong in that sense. And uh, again, it's kind of going through all of these different uh, approaches, because you can see how Alice sort of comes across a variety of different characters, and so you sort of see how their personalities kind of shine even in the smaller bits that they're in. Uh, so that's really something that I think lends itself really well to animation, and you can clearly see that being really utilized well here within this particular Disney film. Um, but I think that's really all I can say about this film without really giving too much away. I thought it'd be interesting for this particular Animation Friday to talk about a film that's actually uh, sort of, I guess, connected to spring in its own way, and also is, uh, again, one of the more well-known works as far as animation is concerned, and in particular Disney. Uh, but yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I could say, though. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye.